Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to part 1 of my mod spotlight for Ars Magica 2. Ars Magica 2 is an updated version of Ars Magica. I've been playing around with it for a little while on Forgecraft 2, and it's about ready for a spotlight. Ars Magica 2 adds a bunch of magical type abilities to the game. Basically, once you've unlocked the basic abilities of magic, your player gets a mana bar, he gets to create and learn many different types of spells, and then he has access to a bunch of different blocks and a whole magical essence system that works as a power system within the mod. There's just a ton of different things to check out. There's probably no way I can cover all this stuff in one episode, so we're going to probably wind up with at least 2 or 3 episode spotlight here. So why don't I get started on part 1 of the spotlight, where I'll show you some of the basic introducing parts of doing magic with Ars Magica 2, and then as we progress through the spotlight, we'll check out some of the blocks and the essence and power system, some of the more advanced spells, and some of the cool different items you're able to get with Ars Magica 2. Alright, let's take a look. Alright guys, so how do we get started with Ars Magica? Well, it's pretty simple. Find one of these essence pools right here. It looks like light blue water. You can pick it up with buckets. It's basically just a liquid. And you'll find it in deserts and smaller little chunks like this, usually like a little 2x2 area. And in more lush terrains like jungles and such, you'll find it in larger pools. Any essence pool will do. Place an item frame nearby and place a book in the item frame and wait for the magic to happen. All the magical essence will drain from that essence pool. It won't use it up, but it'll store some magical energy inside that book, and shortly you'll have yourself the arcane compendium. Ta-da! Go ahead and pick that guy up, and you've got the secrets of the arcane unlocked. Cool. Alright, now once you've unlocked the secrets of the arcane, you'll find that there's several tabs on the left hand side here that you'll have access to check out a couple different neat things. Let's take a look through them right now. On the general page of the compendium, you're going to find some basic pieces of information. And as you unlock more and more things within Ars Magica, you're going to unlock more and more things within the pages of the compendium. So you'll start off just knowing a couple basic shapes and a couple basic components. But as you unlock more and more, you'll be able to see more things listed in the compendium. So you might not see everything that I'm seeing here when you first open it, but you will unlock it over time. So let's get started. Basically, you'll have instructions on how to use the compendium. You can see the Ars Magica UI and how to change that around, how to craft your first spell, and spell components, that kind of stuff. You're going to want to flip through that and read some of the details because it really does help you out if you haven't already played around with Ars Magica before. But this spotlight should give you everything you need to know to get started as well. So let's get started at the very first point by making our first spell. That's what we're here for after all. So first off, we need to get ourselves an oculus and an inscription table and a crafting altar. Okay. One of the cool things about this nifty little book here is you can click on things to jump over to the relative pages some of the time. Right now, I believe that the crafting altar right here can be seen. That's how you have to create your crafting altar. We're going to get to that in a minute, though. Don't worry. Let's first get ourselves an oculus. The oculus is crafted pretty easily. You're going to need to get yourself some kind of bricks, some glass, some coal, and some blue topaz, which is part of the Ars Magica world generation. Okay. Once you place that down, like so, you're able to see several trees of different magical spell abilities. The one that's open by default here is the offensive tree. Everything within here is offensive-based magic. In other words, trying to attack your enemies and weaken them or something along those lines. And you also note that most of what's available is darkened out, so you can't see what's there just yet. But as you unlock different areas within this skill tree, you'll be able to expand and use more and more spell components. The second tab here is your defensive tree. This is stuff that's going to help you and heal you and protect you and give you buffs. Okay. And then finally, the third tab here is the utility tree. This is things that aren't quite defensive and aren't quite offensive, but are more utility based. Give you different nifty things like the ability to summon lights and see at night, that kind of stuff. Pretty cool. And then finally, over here, you've got your affinity, which I'll get into in just a bit. Okay, so those are your 3 basic trees. At the top of each tree is your first spell shape. Now, to create spells, you need 3 different components: shapes, components, and modifiers. Shapes are basically defining how the spell is targeted and how it works. So a projectile shape, for example, is a spell that's shot out of your hand and hits a target in a distance. A self shape is something that when you right click, it'll activate and apply to yourself. And then a touch shape is something that's not too close or not too far away, but you can right click on the block itself and it'll affect whatever block you're right clicking on. So if I had, a piece of cobblestone here and I right clicked on it with touch, it would break. But if I was aiming at that piece of wood in the distance and right clicked, it would shoot a projectile if it was the projectile shape. Cool. So let's get ourselves our first basic spell. Let's show something fun. We'll go ahead and learn the projectile shape. Boom, just like that. Once we've unlocked it, all the adjacent shapes are available nearby. You'll also notice in the top right corner 3 numbers, blue, green, and red. Each of the spell components has one of these 3 colors. There's blue ones, there's green ones, and there's red ones. Typically, the further down the tree, the higher the components are. So your blue ones are more towards the top, your green ones are more towards the middle, and your red ones are more towards the bottom, but you'll also notice that that's not always the case. You might dig deep into a tree and find a blue one past a red one. So it's not always the case. So it's not like once you've finished up all your blues near the top, you're done with them. So, you're going to want to keep that in mind. I'll show you how to get more of these in just a bit. But for now, keep in mind that every time you unlock a component here, you're going to lose one of these. So I've already given myself projectile. And if we look in our compendium, we should see the arcane compendium shows projectile now. You're able to focus your will into a concentrated ball, which you can propel forwards and away from you. Neat. From there, we can see that there's 2 things activated. There's gravity and bounce. These guys are both modifiers. And what this does is it modifies the projectile. So you could set it up so that when you shoot it, it bounces off the wall if you add a modifier for bounce. Or you could set it up to modify with gravity so that the projectile is affected by gravity. We're going to skip those for just now, and we're going to go ahead and use the physical damage. Okay. Now that I've unlocked that guy, we should see over in our components tab, physical damage is listed. Cool. And this is just a basic explanation of what the physical damage spell does. Also, once you've unlocked a skill, you can see that now fire damage and magic damage are available. And even though I haven't learned them yet, they're also available in the compendium. So I can take a look at what they do before I go ahead and learn them. So the next spell components that are available to us are also shown in the compendium. And it gives us a brief description of exactly how it works. Let's go ahead and learn the fire damage spell. Sounds like a good one to learn, right? Cool. So now that I know these components and how they work and how to use them, how do I go ahead and proceed with making a spell out of them? Well, for that, we're going to need the inscription table. Let's take a look. The inscription table right here is crafted pretty easily. Just some wood. We're going to need a feather and a torch, and we're also going to need some spell parchment. You're going to want to remember how to make spell parchment. It's basically 2 sticks and a piece of paper. You're going to need that for quite a few things within Ars Magica. Let's go ahead and place our table down. Once we open up the inscription table, we're able to see all the components that we've thus far learned, such as projectile, physical damage, and fire damage. As you unlock more and more things within the Oculus, you're going to be able to see more and more components and shapes and modifiers available within this table. The first thing we need to do is get ourselves a written book. Just a vanilla written book, okay? It's basically the book and quill, the one that's not written yet, this guy. Vanilla item, book, black ink, and feather. Go ahead and place that in this slot here. Then you're going to want to drag and drop the spell components that are part of the spell. You're always going to need to have a projectile or self or touch, so some kind of shape needs to go first. Let's go ahead and place that down. You're also going to be notified at the top right here at least one component is needed, so you can't just have a projectile without telling it what type of projectile. We're going to make a fire-based projectile, so let's go ahead and bring the fire damage spell down here. Now the spell's ready to be made. Now if we had some modifiers, we could add them at this point, or if we wanted to have other features or things, we could get to that. But for now, we're going to make a very basic fire damage spell. And it tells you up at the top here, removing the book will finalize the spell recipe. Here we go. Ta-da! We've now removed the book, and we have a spell recipe. It's by Direwolf 20. We could have named it as well if we wanted to. In fact, let's do this. I'm going to remove this thing. I'm going to bring down projectile and fire damage again. And we're going to name it Fire Projectile, because I'm not creative at all. Now you can see the book is named Fire Projectile by Direwolf 20. When we right-click on the book, we're going to see the combination of components that are here. So we can see it's a projectile that does fire damage. Makes sense. The final thing we're going to need here is a crafting altar. The crafting altar is your gateway to making spells, and it's pretty much the main component for the spell creation system. What we can do is build this shape out of many, many different types of materials, and the different materials determine how complex of a spell we can make. So your very most basic crafting altar could be made out of wooden planks, which you can see allows for one effect, or stone brick, which also allows for one effect. Okay, and then these caps here, which are the blocks in the corners and the bottom, you're going to need 5 of them. All right, those are also going to add an effect. Again, the most basic one being glass. If we wanted to make more advanced spells, we're going to want to use more advanced materials like coal or redstone or iron. Okay, so pretty much your most effective material to build out of would be witchwood, nether brick, or nether quartz. Okay, and it's really up to you how you want the thing to look. If you want it to look like nether brick, go for it. If you want to make it look like nether quartz, sure, why not? So basically, the three options here are the most powerful in terms of materials to make out of, and it's really up to you on how you want your altar to look. So I'm going to make mine out of nether brick. And we can see here we're going to need some blocks, but we're also going to need some stairs. So why don't I give myself some nether brick blocks and stairs? Okay, nether bricks right there, and nether brick stairs right there. And I'm also going to go with a middle of the road kind of structure, redstone blocks. So let's get some of those as well. You can see other components that are going to be required here are the magic wall, which is pretty easy to make. You're just going to need some Vintium dust. Vintium dust comes from a couple different recipes. Why don't I show you right here? Vintium dust is smelted versions of Vintium ore, which is a world gem structure once again. So you'll find Vintium ore as you're out mining, and when you smelt it, you'll get Vintium dust, 1 for 1. Not too bad. Okay, so let's get ourselves the magic walls that we're going to need. This stuff, by the way, also just looks kind of cool in the world. Pretty neat, right? So feel free to build out of it. And then the other components we're going to need is a lectern, which you can see here is really easy to make. And you're also going to want to have a lever. And I'll get to what the lever's for in a moment. And then finally, you're going to need the crafting altar itself, which is just a piece of stone with some Vintium dust splattered on top of it. All right, so let's get ourselves the crafting altar and the lever and the lectern. There we go. So now we've got everything we need to make this structure out of. What's cool about this arcane compendium here is it's going to show you one layer at a time if you want. So right now we're seeing what the overall, all the layers are looking like. But if we want, we can see layer 0, which is just a 5x5 of the material. So why don't I build that now real quick. The next layer is going to have the following. We're going to want the same material like so, and over here like so. And then we're going to want magic walls in between them. We're also going to want to place on this level the lectern. And then on the next level up, we're going to want the same exact setup. But this is where we place the lever on the opposing side from where the lectern was. Cool. And then the next level is the same as the last two, minus the lectern and the lever. Okay, and we can see that listed here. So there was the lectern, there was the lever, and then there was this guy. Finally, we're going to want some stairs right in the middle here on that next level. So you can see we're going to want to face these stairs downwards, like so. Cool. The final components here are the following. We're going to want some stairs facing out on top of the magic walls, like so. And then we're going to want to have blocks coming in from the center like that, but we want to leave the very center block open. Okay, we can also see on the level, on the 5th level here, so the blocks in the center, and then stairs on all sides. So like this. And that's mostly the structure. The final piece that we need to add here are the caps. So let's go ahead and use the block of redstone like I mentioned earlier. So this is a good middle of the road crafting altar. We're also going to want a block of redstone in the center, and then we're going to want a crafting altar block itself right on the top. Once we've placed that, this thing is ready to go. So in order to craft spells, we need to add components, which are items that go into the crafting altar as we're making the spell. A good idea is to check what you need ahead of time to make sure you have all the items ready before you go to craft your spell. Let's take a look. So we're going to need a blank rune. We're going to need 2 Vintium dust, an arrow, a snowball, a red rune, flint and steel, and spell parchment. Runes are really easy to make, so let's go ahead and take a look at those real quick first. Blank runes are just, a few pieces of cobblestone, and then there's a bunch of different colors, which are basically a rune with the associated dye. So as long as you've got the dye, you're in good shape. So we needed a red rune and a blank rune. Okay. The other components that we need here are 2 Vintium dust, an arrow, snowball, flint and steel, and spell parchment. Why don't I get those for you in a moment? There we go. Looks like we've got everything we need. So let's place our fire projectile book on the altar here. Now, one thing you're going to want to look for is if this book turns red. If that book turns red, it means your altar isn't powerful enough to make all the things in the book. Remember, I told you the more components you have listed here, the more powerful the altar has to be. You're going to need better materials and you're going to need better caps. So if you want to make really, really complex spells, you're going to want to upgrade these redstone caps to something better. But for now, we're good because it's a very basic spell. To get started with any spell, you're going to need to drop a blank rune in there, as the book tells you. Once that occurs, you'll start seeing some particle effects zipping around, letting you know the spell creation process has begun. The other thing that's going to happen is this book is going to tell you the next item in the series that needs to be sacrificed to the altar to create the spell. Let's drop our Vintium dust in there right now. Just one. Next up, we need an arrow. Okay, not a problem. A snowball. We can handle that. A red rune. There you go. Flint and steel. Another piece of Vintium dust, and then the last component always needed is a spell parchment. This is where the spell will be written to. And we can see that the spell component has been made, and if we look here, we see it's a projectile spell. Neat. If we right-click on it the very first time, we're able to name it and give it an icon to associate it with. You're going to want to make sure that you set this thing up correctly because I don't think you can change it once you've gone ahead and made it. So since this is a basic fireball spell, I'm going to go ahead and choose this little fire icon right here. That looks really neat. And fire projectile, and then just hit escape to close this tab. And we have just created our first spell. You can see that your hand is holding a nice little fireball effect, which indicates that we're able to cast this spell. On the bottom left and right of your screen here, you can see your mana and burnout. We can see how much this spell costs by mousing over it. Note here that the mana cost on this spell is a little bit high, 67.5, but don't worry, as you gain Ars Magica levels, you'll quickly get more and more mana. Not a problem. Why don't we get something to cast this spell at? I'm going to go ahead and look for some sheep, because you guys are always good guinea pigs. Cool. The sheep's ready to be attacked by the fire spell. Simply right-click, and you'll shoot a fireball spell. Note, however, that we also gained some experience by doing that, and we just hit level 2. Nice. We now have 104 mana. Don't worry, we'll get more and more mana as we level up. So we'll right-click again. Ta-da! And we happen to get another level. Nice. So as you cast spells and they actually do something, you're going to go ahead and get mana experience. If you shoot your fireball spell at the wall, you're not going to get any experience for that. So don't waste your time. The other thing you're going to notice here is the burnout. I'm going to show you what that means in a moment. Go ahead and cast your spell again. Oh, cool. I got another level. Very nice. Burnout is pretty much associated with the extra cost of mana. So you'll notice here that my mana cost on this fire projectile is slowly going down until it reaches the bottom 67.5 mana. That's because my burnout was a little bit high. Every time you cast a spell, you have a chance of increasing your burnout, which means the next time you cast a spell, your mana cost is going to increase. Just wait a little bit and your burnout will slowly diminish over time. You'll also notice that you might not have enough mana to cast a spell like you just saw on the bottom right there. I'm going to cast this guy. Again, the mana cost went up as my burnout went up, but as my burnout drops, the mana cost continues to drop. So that's what burnout's all about. You can also move these little things around by typing /AMUI-CFG, Ars Magica user interface config, and it'll give you the option to move all this stuff around. So you can see here the burnout meter can be moved, and separately you can move the numeric value for the burnout. Pretty cool, right? So you can do all kinds of stuff to move it around. Your experience bar, your numeric experience value, and then you also have some options to show the armor status that you're wearing, and minimal HUD is a nice option. It only shows this interface when you have a spell selected. The interface is hidden when you don't have a spell selected. You can disable that, though, to have it available all the time by just changing minimal HUD to no. And you'll notice now that even though I don't have a spell on, I always have my mana and burnout available to me. Pretty neat. And then finally, you have the option as to whether or not you want to show durations and the numeric value of some stuff. So if I turn off numeric value, I wouldn't see the numeric value of my burnout and mana. Nice, right? All right, so let's move our mana bar back down a little bit underneath the word mana. That looks pretty good. And we've just created our first spell. That's really all there is to it in making spells. The only thing is, the more complex the spell, the more components are going to go into it. And every spell shape and component has its own stuff. So we can see here the projectile shape needed Vintium dust, a snowball, and an arrow. That means anytime you make a projectile spell, it's always going to need a snowball, an arrow, and Vintium dust as part of the spell component. Anytime that you want to make a fire spell, let's go to components here in fire damage. It's going to require a red rune, another Vintium dust, and flint and steel. So these are always the components for the fire spell. Okay, and then, like I said, you're always going to need a blank rune and a spell parchment for the start and end of every spell. So I told you earlier I'd tell you how to get more of these numbers. Well, we got more of those numbers. So we have more skill points that we can use to unlock. That occurred because I leveled. I think every other level you're going to get skill points. So I'm currently level 4 and I've got 2 skill points. So that kind of matches up. So now I can expand my magical knowledge. Pretty neat. You'll notice, however, that not everything that follows the line here is unlockable. I couldn't learn lightning damage if I wanted to. Let's go for it. Ta-da! But over here I can't learn this. Why? Because it is a green text. So we can see this is green, and down, let's see, here is red. I don't have any green or red skill points, so I can't unlock these until I get some of those. Don't worry, as you get higher magical levels, you'll start unlocking green skill points, and then there's another system which I'll show you soon on how to unlock the green skill points. So for now, I just learned lightning damage. Now, I could go through the process of using the crafting altar again to show you what a lightning spell looks like, but I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to cheat this in using creative mode. If you're in creative mode, it's a really nice way to test out your spells. So let's take a look. With creative mode on, I want to make sure I get myself some books. So let's get ourselves a book and quill. I'm going to place this guy right in here. When you're in creative mode, by the way, you also have access to all the spells that are available, and as you can see here, there's quite a bit. You can also search for them. So if I wanted to make a projectile spell, I could just type in P, and we would see all the spells that have the letter P in them. So projectile. Neat, right? So let's take a look. We'll do the projectile spell and lightning damage. Okay. And all you have to do is click Make Spell. And then when you close out of the interface there, you'll have the spell in your hand ready to go. So in creative mode, you can test out these spells. It's really pretty neat. So we'll call this lightning damage. And give this thing a little shot. So where's my sheep? Ta-da! Take that, sheep. You'll also notice that it doesn't cost mana when you cast spells in creative mode. Pretty cool. So I've just gone ahead and given myself a bunch of skill points by using a cheating command that's available if you're a server op or if you're in a single player game. And now I have access to a bunch more spells. The reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to show you another aspect of spell creation that I didn't get to in the last segment, and that is how to use essence. There's one thing you might need to know about using essence. Why don't I show it to you now? So I'm going to go ahead and give myself a self skill, a defensive skill, and it's going to cast anything I choose on myself. I'm also going to need to give myself regeneration and heal. Regeneration will cast a regeneration buff on yourself, and heal will heal you instantly. Pretty neat, right? Let's go ahead and make a spell that's a little bit more complex. We're going to go ahead and choose the self regeneration heal spell. So this is going to, when I cast it, cast both a regeneration and a heal on myself. So you can see that with the spell casting system, we can really customize it. If I made this a projectile, I could shoot the spell at a friend of mine, and anytime he got hit by it, he would get regeneration and heal. But I want to cast it on myself. So that's why I use the self shape. All right, let's go ahead and name this regen/heal. Ta-da! And if we look in the book here, we'll discover that not only do we have a bunch of items that we need to throw into this list of cool stuff here, we also need some essence. Essence is a magical energy. There's 3 types of essence: light, neutral, and dark. And we can read about it more in the Arcane Compendium. Let's take a look. So you can see here it's telling you about a nexus, which is going to generate essence, and conduits, which can be used to transfer essence, and a couple other nifty things. Let's take a look at the different structures that we need to make to get essence. We're either going to need a light nexus, which is made with quartz blocks and some kind of cap, be it either glass, gold, or diamond, and this will generate light energy during the day. You can also use moonstone, which is a world gen type structure. It doesn't actually generate in the world. Anytime a player is nearby, there might be a meteor that falls at nighttime, and those meteors will contain moonstone. And if you build your caps out of moonstone, instead of generating light energy during the day, it'll generate it at night. Pretty neat, right? Now, for this particular thing, I'm going to need some neutral nexus energy, right? So it says right here, 500 essence, neutral. All right, so how do we get that? Well, we're going to need to build ourselves a essence nexus, okay? This thing's actually pretty easy to make. You're going to need some stone bricks, some chiseled stone bricks, and then finally you're going to need some blue chalk, which is not too hard to get. So let's get it. Some stone bricks, some chiseled stone bricks, And then we're going to need some chalk. The blue chalk, which is made for the neutral nexus, is just some blue dye, some Ventium dust, some flint, clay, and paper. Really not too hard to get. Okay. Again, this is a 5x5 structure, so let's build it like so. I'm going to build it right across from here. We're going to have here, here, 1, 2, 3, here, and here. You're going to want the 2 blocks like so. And then finally, you're going to want these little caps here. And that's really all there is to the neutral nexus. It's really pretty simple. And then right click in the middle. You'll know you built it right if this thing turns blue and starts spinning. Cool. Now your neutral nexus is pretty straightforward. As a matter of fact, to make this even easier, you're probably not going to want to build this on sand. So why don't I throw, we'll make this whole internal structure here made out of bricks. You could build it on sand, but you'll see in a moment why you probably wouldn't want to. Okay, and unfortunately you're going to have to get yourself another piece of chalk if you decide to break that center block. Good news is it's not too expensive. There we go. Cool, looking good. All right, I'm going to dig underneath here because the way that you power a neutral nexus is pretty straightforward. All right, let's get out of here. You're going to need to get a bucket of this essence right over here. Now, unfortunately, unlike water blocks, this won't automatically refill, so this is a limited amount of liquid. So you're going to want to make sure to find yourself a nice, decent-sized pool of that stuff. Okay, simply pour that bucket underneath the nexus here. Okay, and as the flowing block reaches the bottom, it's going to start draining some energy out of the full block. So you'll see here it's draining, draining, draining. And then once it finishes draining all the energy out of that liquid nexus energy, we'll see that it uses up the source block of liquid there. And now there's energy stored in this. How can we check that out? Well, we're going to need to get ourselves a Magitech staff. Okay, this thing's not too hard to make, just a vanilla crafting recipe. And when you right click on it, it'll tell you how much detected essence is inside and a percentage overall of the total available. So it's totally storing a little bit, more than 0%. It's rounding, of course, but it's storing 860 total essence from that bucket. And if we check our compendium here, or our spell crafting recipe for that matter, we'll see that we needed 500. So 1 bucket was enough for this. So we're in good shape. So I've initiated the spell creation for my regen and heal on my self spell. Let's take a look at how this works. So we start throwing our items in here, just like we did before. And I'm tossing in everything that's needed. When you see this symbol right here, that's when you have to start adding your essence. So how do we do it? First off, you're going to want to craft a crystal wrench. The crystal wrench uses a couple world gen flowers, the desert nova and the blue orchid, both found in world generation. And what you're going to do here is right click on where the essence is coming from. In this case, it's coming right here from this neutral nexus. You'll see that it's working because you get this white beam of light coming out the top. Then you're going to want to right click on the destination block. Right here, the center of the crafting altar is what you want to right click on. And if that white beam disappears, you'll know that you've paired the source and the destination for the energy correctly. Because this block is requesting that energy, we need to indicate to the system that it's ready to receive the energy from the neutral nexus by flipping the lever. When we do so, we'll see a magical beam of energy transferred from the nexus up to the crafting altar. And we'll also indicate that the lever flips off by itself, so the lever has switched off, and we've got the next item on our list available. We can also take a look with our Magitech staff and see that it did in fact use 500 essence, as we only have 360 left in the little system there. And then we can continue dropping items in. So my golden apple goes in, my green rune, another alm, and then a spell parchment. Ta-da! I've got a regen / heal spell. Pretty cool. I'll just pick whatever icon I want and then right click. And we'll see that I both got the regeneration buff and it healed me a little bit directly. Cool. It did also give me a large amount of burnout, but not a big deal. We can see the mana cost down here slowly dropping as the burnout wears off, and we also probably gained a level from that, and another level. Don't worry, you can't just right click and spam spells, by the way. There's a bit of diminishing returns. Every time you cast a spell, there's a short period of time where if you cast another spell right afterwards, it's not going to give you quite as much experience. So don't just sit here spamming your spells like so. It's not going to give you much experience. Cast it every now and then, wait about 30 seconds to a minute before you cast again if you're really looking to get the most experience out of it. But so far, we've got a couple of really nice spells, don't we? So there's a bunch of different types of spells and shapes and modifiers we can take a look at. One of the ones I went ahead and made ahead of time, just to show you guys, is a nifty spell called the Zone Spell. What this does is anytime you cast a spell, it'll create a zone nearby, like so, and anybody who stands within that zone will get whatever the spell does. In this case, it's regeneration. So you can see the regeneration effect constantly being applied on me as long as I stand in that area. Okay? Pretty neat, right? Yes, very cool. There's a bunch of different types of spells available. Let's take a look at some more. We've got area of effect spells. We've got beam spells, binding, chain, channel. I don't have nearly enough time to show you guys all the different spells during the spotlight, but I will most definitely be showing you a couple more over the next episode or two of the Ars Magica 2 spotlight, so keep an eye out for it. You can do contingency type spells so that it activates anything in certain cases. So for example, you could have a contingency spell of damage so that anytime you take damage, you can also go ahead and put on here self and then heal. So anytime you take damage, you get a self-heal effect. Pretty neat, right? Contingency damage, self-heal. Okay, let's make that spell and take a look at it. Okay, there it is. Contingency. Cool. That looks like a nice effect. So you can see here that on the bottom left, it's got that contingency thing going on. Let's go ahead and make sure that I take some damage. I'm going to try falling from a good height here. Ta-da! As soon as I took damage, you see it healed me. Pretty neat, right? Yeah, absolutely. Beam spells are really cool. I've just combined a beam spell with the dig spell, and take a look at this. Nice, right? You can also go ahead and combine it with a projectile spell if you want to have a projectile dig spell. So every time you right click, it shoots a projectile, and you can dig from really far away. Let's take down that cactus. Boom. See you later, buddy. There's also the area of effect spell. I've combined projectile, dig, and area of effect. Ta-da! Pretty cool. So you can see that there's a lot of different combinations you can make, and really, the sky's the limit. You can come up with all kinds of different combinations. I haven't even shown you like a tenth of the different spell components that are available in this thing. If we were to take a look at the Arcane Compendium, I'm in creative mode, so I'm guessing, yeah. So you can see here's all your different shapes. So you have AoE, beam, binding, chain, channel, all this different stuff. You have runes that you can place on the ground, walls and zones. Your components, there's a huge list of components, invisibility, ignition, all kinds of stuff that you could really have a lot of fun playing with. So look at this long list of different things that your spells can do, and think about the combinations of the spell components and the shapes that are available. And then finally the modifiers that are available. All kinds of different stuff. Like if we added radius to our area of effect, it would increase the radius of the area of effect spell. So instead of mining a 3x3 area like it is now, it could mine a larger area because of the radius ability added to it. Pretty cool. So there's a lot of different stuff to check out within Ars Magica. I haven't even scratched the surface. There's a lot more things to see aside from the spells. There's blocks and items and mechanics that I'm going to show you in the next episode of the Spotlight. Unfortunately, for now, we have reached the wrapping up point for part 1 of the Spotlight because I've covered most of the spell components that I wanted to show you. So for now, this is Direwolf20 signing off. Hope you've enjoyed the Spotlight on Ars Magica 2. There's plenty more to show you. So for now, take it easy.